If you've been doing genealogy research for any length of time, you know that you're going to have some thoughts, some questions, and some ideas that you need to take note of throughout the genealogy research process. And how are you going to do that? Today, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I keep track of my genealogy research notes through the genealogy research process. While there is a genealogy proof standard, I want to take it a little bit step further and show you what my process actually looks like. First, I develop a quality genealogy research question. What is it that I'm trying to answer? And then I go and I look at previous research. Has the answer been found? Is there contradictory information? Or do I have clues that can help me answer the question, but now I just need to go and prove it? The next thing I do is I take all of that background information in my genealogy research question and I go put it in my genealogy research plan. There are links to all of these steps in the show notes, so be sure to check out the blog post associated with this video. You'll find it in the description. So with my genealogy research plan, I articulate the records that I'm going to look at in order to answer my question. Once I have the plan, then I go and search that plan. And sometimes along the way, I come up with new suggestions and I just keep adding it into my plan. Then I go and evaluate and analyze the evidence, very similar to the genealogy proof standard. I write my conclusion. And then my final step, which isn't in the proof standard, is I go and update my trees. I basically share my information. But all along the way, I have notes. And those notes come up all the time because a genealogy research note is any thought, any question, or possible conclusion you may have as you're climbing your family tree, as you're going through the genealogy research process. So, how am I going to keep track of my notes? Now, I've been to a lot of genealogy conferences and I've read a lot of blog posts and I looked at a lot of books, and I just keep thinking of the acronym KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. But I don't want to call you stupid, so let's change it to KISS, sir. Keep it simple, researcher. I want you to keep your research notes where you research. So there are a lot of other strategies. They say put your research notes here and put your research notes here and keep your records here, and just everything's everywhere. But I'm all about simplicity because I lose things like crazy. So we're going to keep our notes where we research. If you are a paper researcher, you're going to use forms that keep track of your notes. But I'm going to give you a recommendation, and if you want free forms that you can use for your paper research style, I have two. The first one is called the Free Note-Taking Form by couple or group. And so this note form can go right after your family group sheets, or after you're in your files where you're filing people by couple. You can stick that note in those files. The link to these forms are over on my blog, and they go to someone else's website. So I definitely want you to visit them and give them credit for the creation of their forms. The second form is called Note-Taking Form by Surname or Record Type. Now, I really like this because the other thing you can do is keep your notes by the records in your record-based file folder. Or if you take records and put them in a surname file, then you can put a note right after that so that you're not writing on your original records and you are not writing on your photocopies. You can have that actual note right there. So those are two forms that can help you in that way. The next thing is if you are a report researcher. So you take that research plan and you turn it into a research report, then keep your notes there. Let me show you some of the ways that I write notes on my research reports. So here I am with a modified research plan. It's not the full one that I like to do, but I can add all sorts of notes. So one of the things I can do is I can highlight something. I use highlighting a lot. Sometimes I use a red highlight to say something's problematic. You can't really read the link in there. I may do green for theories. I use yellow for questions to resolve or research that needs to be conducted. And then if I go and I transcribe, let's say I go and transcribe the 1910 census, then I will use a blue highlight. So I can highlight anything in here and I can insert a comment. I can do it that way, or there's also now on Google Docs, there's the add comment feature right here. And so I can type in my comment, my question or note, and click it here. So there we have a comment. Now another thing that I can do is use footnotes. So I can do insert, footnote, and I can put in my note, theory, or question down below. And then I have lots of places to keep track in my research note style of researching. Now notice I don't use a research log. I have a video about that makes some people kind of mad. But again, I don't research with a research log because I have a plan and I have genealogy software, which is my next recommendation. So you can use a research log. I'm just going to tell you it's a wasted step, but you decide. So genealogy software program. So there are a number of different software programs that you can add source notes to. So here is RootsMagic. This is actually RootsMagic 7, and I didn't want to wait for 8 to come out before I can release this video, but you will find some similar ways to add notes to your field. So there is your person, and when you click on your person, there will be ways to add a note. So I have a person note, and which Henry is ours is a question that I have. And I also have a note that tells me a little bit about him. Henry had various occupations. He was a stonemason, a blacksmith, a driller, and so on and so forth. So I can put questions, and I can actually put the beginning of my writing projects here in my notes. I can do a note for the couple, so notes that are specific to the couple. I can do notes for his parents right from this page without navigating over there. And I can do notes for each event. So birth, residence, he is identified as Henry Billman. There is no relationship identification to indicate Henry is Michael's stepson. So this is a clarification note. Some of my notes are on their certificate. The names are Henry Gaskar and Magdalena Hoppe. So again, this information you can extract any type of note that you need. And if you have a to-do list, so here it is find the birth record. Is there a christening record? I can click on that and I can put my task details. I thought he was baptized in Holy Cross. So there's another place where I can keep notes. So if you are a software-based researcher, then put your notes in your software program. Don't go put them in some other application. Put them where you are researching. And finally, if you're an online researcher, then keep track of your notes in your online tree. Let me show you a couple of places that you can put notes online. So this is Ancestry, and Ancestry has a number of places where you can add some notes. Well, one of the notes could be a tree tag. So I can click on my tree tag and I can edit my tree tags and I can add some new ones. In Slate, oh, they've added some new ones, cool. And I could pick some of my relationship tags, direct ancestor, maybe he had multiple spouses. I can add that in. There's one way to add notes. Now, since we're right here, we can just hop over to notes. The notes section on Ancestry is different than the comments section. The notes section is just for your private use. So you can put your questions, your comments, your theories, whatever you want right there. And the comments section is public. So anybody can come here and look at this poorly written, but it's still a note, and notes are fine in poorly written structure. But anybody can see this comment where the notes are mine, and anybody can see the tree tags. Pretty slick right there. There are some other places that I like to put notes, and one of them is in an event. So click on edit and notice you have date and location. That's great. And I could show on a map in the life story view, but I use this description to pull out the details from the document. So this was for let's go back here and be sure. This is from the 1860 census. So the facts details is where I put notes about what was happening in his life in that event. And click close. And that's where you can see these little notes. And what's really great, let me find Sherman, his son, and you're going to see this a little more clearly. So age 1830. Now I don't really need that note, but if I come down here, Peddler 616 South 8, and then can't find him in the directory, laborer living at Reeb Avenue laborer, 241 Reeb Avenue iron worker. And notice I can track everything that's happening in his life visually very quickly by using those notes. So I highly recommend you use the description sections there. So those are the places I use notes on Ancestry. So now let's go look up where I put notes on MyHeritage. So here I'm on my family tree, and I am going to go to the profile for William James Townsend, and now I'm going to go to his profile. Now, all I need to do is scroll down, and there's going to be lots of places where I can add some information. So add personal information. On this page, I have a lot of things I can choose. I can choose his religion if I happen to know it, his nationalities, political views, height and weight, and hair color and eye color. I believe from the writing I did, he had blue eyes. I think it was brown. He was blinded during the Civil War, and I can add that note. I can add other information. If you scroll away, you will get a note that says, sorry, that won't work. But I can do the essential information. I can edit his family information. I can just add a biography. If I want to add another note, I can click add another note. Contact information. He's not alive, so that won't work. What his job was, so I could put a farmer. Save and continue keeps you in this workspace. Save and close will send you back to the profile. There's all these different informations you can add, or you can just come to all facts and work on that as well and add notes. So look, let's say you have a census record information 1880 and you want to add a note. You click add note, and now you can extract that information. It's very similar to what we did over on Ancestry, and then you can keep track of that information there. So lots of places on MyHeritage to keep track of your notes. So let's go over to Family Search. Now, Family Search has a number of places where you can keep notes. Right here is the life sketch field, and you can add a note there. Just click edit to add. I don't want you to recommend that you have notes in your reason statements. I would rather have you, why did this information get attached? And you can see in 2014, I forgot to add that information. But whenever you're adding something, tell other researchers why you're doing that. That is a form of a note, but if you wanted to extract the information from certain documents, I wouldn't put it in the reason statements. Other information, this is a lot of great opportunities to add information. Oh, look, they added no children, no couple relationships. Oh, cool. They're adding new stuff all the time. But you can add these event facts. You can add an alternate name. You can also add a custom event. Whenever you have a resident information, you can click edit, and look, this is the reason it was attached, but I can go ahead and leave it there. But reason statements get overwritten. So what can you also do? Well, I highly recommend that you come into the collaborate section and you add notes here. Whatever questions you have, whatever thoughts you have, any type of note that you want to share with others, yes, stick it there. And then the last thing you can also do with your research notes is you can add it as a document. So you come over here, click upload document, and you can add it there. I would rather use this notes in the document section for research reports that are completed, and I'd rather see us use notes for any type of extra details that we have for the records and stuff. So there are a lot of places to keep track of your notes, but the thing I have to stress is keep the notes where you do your research. Don't try to leverage or utilize things just because an educator said, hey, I do this and works. That's great, but you need to discover your own way of researching. And the best thing to do is to keep it simple, researcher, and keep those notes where you research. If you want more tips and tricks on how to be a better genealogist, be sure you check the playlist right up there. And if you're ready for something new, specifically chosen for you by YouTube, check out the playlist right there.